Global temperatures are on the rise. The world is heating up. Ask anyone in Asia braving this heat wave right now. But guess who else is feeling hot? ChatGPT, the open AI chatbot. And to cope with the heat, it likes staying hydrated. So ChatGPT is guzzling water. Apparently, every 20 to 50 questions, it needs a bottle of water. And while getting trained, it consumes some 700,000 liters of water. Sure, hydration is great, but this is worrying. Are global water challenges worth having ChatGPT do our English homework? Here's a report.
OpenAI's chatbot was launched in November last year. It's called ChatGPT. You've probably heard of it. Well, unless you're Patrick, the SpongeBob cartoon character who lived under a rock. But jokes aside, ChatGPT has been the talk of the town. It has soared in popularity. It can answer questions with near accuracy. It can write poems for you, do your math homework, and even write code. Over 100 million people use it every month. All in all, it's been making waves. But speaking of water, ChatGPT is now under scrutiny for having too much of it. Yes, you heard that right. A new study is out. It's been conducted in the US. It says that ChatGPT has been guzzling down water, and lots of it. For every 20 to 50 questions, it needs a bottle of water. That's 500 ml. And may we add, it's fresh, clean water. Yes, it's not been recycled or repurposed. And sure, 500 ml doesn't seem like much, but it adds up. Remember, ChatGPT has millions of users. Think about the number of questions, the number of recipe suggestions, and holiday homework answers. So just imagine how much water it's been drinking, and how it's increasing its water footprint. This is an environmental indicator, a lot like a carbon footprint. It measures the volume of fresh water used. But we'll get to more of that later. First, the golden question. How do AI chatbots use water? Just to make it clear, chatbots don't directly drink the water. It's used by their data centers. The water helps them generate electricity and cool the racks of servers, which is important. Chatbots rely on thousands of servers that are spread across the world. They're high-functioning machines, and they need to be cooled down regularly so they can maintain optimal performance. And the more complex the chatbot, the more water it needs. Like GPT-3, it's more advanced, and so it's also thirstier. While training GPT alone, about 7,000 liters of water were used. But there's no publicly available data. Even this research we're talking about is not peer-reviewed. It's been shared ahead of its publication. Because there's very little research on the environmental impact of AI. Experts say that AI models have a water footprint. It's massive, but it's been under the radar. Remember when Bitcoin was stuck in this messy puddle too? Millions of so-called data miners are gaga over cybercurrencies. They use it to extract wealth, but little do they know this comes at a high price, because it takes water to generate each unit. Every single transaction burns electricity, enough for an entire household for a week. And this is highly problematic. Artificial intelligence may get away with this, but these problems have real-world consequences. The water crisis is gruesome. 1 in 10 people lack access to safe water. 1 in 4 don't have access to basic sanitation. And about 1 million people die from it each year. A child is dying every 2 minutes. So this is serious. And companies need to acknowledge their role in it. They need to take social responsibility and make data more transparent. Water challenges are growing, but so is collective action. There's more global scrutiny, so companies can't stay under the radar anymore. It's no longer going to float their boat. And next time ChatGPT wants to cool down, might we suggest meditation?
Further north, the war in Ukraine is spilling over. It has reached Russia, but not in a way that Moscow would have imagined. Russia ended up bombing its own city today. A Russian jet was flying near the Ukrainian border. It dropped bombs over Belgorod, which is a Russian city, and this is how it happened. Here is the aftermath. It was an accident. The Russian fighter dropped a bomb by mistake. 2 people were injured, 4 apartments and some cars were damaged. How did this happen? It's not quite clear yet. Russia has released limited information. It said the bomb dropped from a Sukhoi Su-34. It was flying over Belgorod. The bomb was accidentally fired. Here's what the city's governor said.
3 people have been injured. 1 person refused to be taken to the hospital. One resident was diagnosed with a closed head injury and concussion. Their life is not in danger. They're receiving all the help they need. One elderly woman felt bad. Her blood pressure went up and she was hospitalized. The medics are now looking after her. Thank God there are no dead.
Belgorod is vulnerable. Since the war began in 2022, this region has seen several explosions and bombings, and the latest incident might have been an accident. But in the past, there have been targeted attacks, reportedly carried out by Ukraine. Just this week, a village in Belgorod was hit. It was a drone attack. The targets were local thermal power plants. Small bombs were dropped on them through drones. Did Ukraine do it? Here's an official statement from Kiev, and I'm quoting, "We will not confirm or deny Ukraine's involvement. I think that Russians should get used to the fact that while they are waging an unjust war of aggression, there are no safe places on their territory." So this attack was basically a threat. If Russia wages war, its own territories are not safe either. That's what they're saying. Meanwhile, Zelensky continues to make demands. He wants a NATO membership, and the NATO chief was in Kiev, his first visit since the war began. He offered support. But Zelensky wants more. He wants a clear path for Ukraine's membership.
The NATO summit in Vilnius can become historic. I'm grateful for the invitation to visit the summit, but it is important that Ukraine receives an appropriate invitation. There is no objective obstacle that would prevent the adoption of political decisions on the invitation of Ukraine to the alliance.
So Zelensky will attend the NATO summit in July. Will he get the membership? The NATO chief made no such promise.
So all NATO allies have agreed that Ukraine will become a member. President Zelensky has a very clear expectation. We discussed this, both the issue of membership but also security guarantees. And of course, Ukraine needs security because no one can tell when and how this war ends. But what we do know is that when the war ends, we need to ensure that history doesn't repeat itself.
Let me decode that for you. As long as the war continues, Ukraine's membership bid will be stuck in a limbo. So that's one demand that won't be met in a hurry, if at all. Though Zelensky's list is a long one. He also wants long-range weapons, jets and ammunition. What for? Apparently, they're planning a counter-offensive to reclaim lost territory. So they want firepower for two things: to hold off fresh advances from Russia and to reclaim what they've lost in the past. Again, will this wish be granted? NATO held a meeting today at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany. And what did they decide? Listen to this.
Together, we will make sure that Ukraine has what it needs to live in freedom. Together, we will defend the rules-based international order that keeps us all secure. And together, we will support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
For as long as it takes, he says, which makes for a good speech. But is America really prepared for another forever war? Where would it draw the line, given the fact that Zelensky's wish list is never ending? You know what else he wants? A summit with Latin America. And for this, he's reached out to Mexico. Again, how does a summit with Latin America help him? Zelensky says it will be a chance for the region to, quote-unquote, show unity, to come together for principles like territorial integrity. Interesting pitch, for want of a better word. But will it find takers? Can he get countries like Brazil on board? You may remember what Brazil's president said recently. He was visiting China last week and he said Washington should stop encouraging the war. Those were his words. Also, the US and EU, and I'm quoting, need to start talking about peace. That's what President Lula da Silva of Brazil said. And arguably, he speaks for many, especially in the global south. Because war fatigue is setting in. People are tired of this conflict and the politics that fuels it. And perhaps it's time for Zelensky to acknowledge his real challenges. His team is under scrutiny for embezzlement of aid money. There are cracks in the Western unity over Ukraine. And all he wants is another speech to rally Latin America behind him. If optics is his game, he's losing there too, and increasingly sounding like a broken record. South Korea is in mourning. In fact, every K-pop fan is in mourning. On Thursday, Korean singer Moonbin was found dead in his apartment. Cause of death? Unknown for now. But the police say it was most likely suicide. Moonbin was part of a K-pop band called Astro. He was just 25 years old. His death has left South Korea shocked. Fans have set up memorials for him across the world, in Manila, in Seoul, in Santiago, Chile. There is a genuine sense of loss and grief. They cannot believe a successful, famous and thriving pop star would take his life. First, listen into the fans.
We are still in the process of trying to accept that Moonbin is gone, so I have been crying all night and all morning.
I want to say it is okay to have a break if things get too difficult, because fans will always be waiting and understanding.
Nothing we can do to bring him back, but lessons must be learned, because this isn't the first high-profile suicide in the K-pop industry. One was reported earlier this month. Korean actress Jung Chae-yul was found dead in her home. She was 26 years old. Last year, another actress, Yoo Joo-yoon, was found dead in her home. She was 27 years old. In 2019, K-pop singer Sulli took her life after struggling with bullying. She was 26. A month later, her friend and fellow pop star Gu Hara was found dead. What's common about these people? A, they're all very young. 25 and 26 is still early times in your life and career. And B, they're all K-pop stars. So clearly there's something wrong in the industry, something that's pushing young people to suicide. The question is what? In one word, it's pressure. What we see is the glamorous side of K-pop. The glitzy concerts, the devoted fans, the private jets. What we don't see is the story behind it, the struggles required to reach the top. Let me tell you how it works. South Korea's K-pop industry is like an assembly chain. Only the best products make it out. It starts off with auditions. Thousands of children attend these events with their parents, and their chances are dismal. Reports say 700 to 1, meaning if 700 children turn up, 1 gets selected. 699 children are rejected. But honestly, they're the lucky ones, because the selected kids are put into a rigorous training. Their day starts at 4 a.m. and ends by midnight. Remember, these are young kids, some of them as young as 8, 9, and 10. They're trained in vocals, dance, and Korean. The diet is bad because it's about looks and not nutrition. And the training is hard because it's about money and not having fun. After all this, a K-pop star is born, usually in their teenage years. They tour the world, they sing in front of massive crowds. They also get praise from the Korean government. But as they grow older, things change. By 25 or 26, the pressure is building on you. You have to reinvent your style or create a different type of music. If not, the assembly chain behind you is ready to push out new stars. Some singers survive this relentless pressure. Others simply cannot. That's the dark side of K-pop, the side the Korean government does not talk about. The question is, what is the solution? For starters, cultural changes. Many South Koreans do not talk about mental health. They think it's taboo. This mindset reflects in South Korea's overall suicide numbers. It's the highest among developed nations. In 2021, around 13,000 people died by suicide in South Korea. The rate is 26 deaths per 100,000 people. Here in India, it's around 12. If you can't talk about mental health, you can't stop these deaths. And the Korean government must take the first step. They have no problems flaunting K-pop to the world, no problems cashing in on their fame or sending them to the United Nations. But when it comes to their mental health, there is silence. This is the hard reality of South Korea's soft power.
And there they go. It looks like
The US and Russia are dangerously close to an armed conflict. This year, 2023, New Delhi will be the capital of global diplomacy. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest. Meanwhile, if we may, here's a Republic Day gift from India for the BBC. A list of suggestions for the BBC for their upcoming documentaries. Number 1, the Kohinoor and the colonial loot. Number 2, an outdated monarchy and unhealthy obsession with the royals. Number 3, racism in 2023. We're waiting.